I'm Carol Reitan. I work at City College of San Francisco, and I teach an online elementary French class, and I've been doing it for 10 years. So what I want to talk about today is, we spend a lot of time trying to make really cool, interesting, engaging content. But I think we should make an equal effort to design activities to make students interact with the material, and I think it's just as important as creating really cool content. So today I want to talk about creating those activities, talking about those activities. So no matter how entertaining we are, or we think we are, we never can be sure that students are learning anything just by pushing content at them. So today I'm going to talk about using the features of our learning management system. We use Moodle to create activities for students, to create community, to keep them motivated, keep them engaged with the material, with us, and with each other, and to help us keep tabs on their progress throughout the semester. So in my face-to-face classes, I've never been one to lecture because, frankly, I'm not very good at it. So in my classes, students answer questions, they write on the board, they work in pairs, they work in small groups, they give oral presentations, they do skits, they do role playing, they jump on the table when we're doing prepositions, they go underneath the table when we're doing prepositions. All of these things keep them motivated, they let the students get to know each other, they keep them engaged with the material, and I skipped my paragraph, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. Anyway, they do lots of things, and many of these activities are not graded. Because the classroom is a place to practice. It's a place to make mistakes, and it's a place to learn from them. And I think it was Rochelle, it was somebody's presentation, they talked about tolerance for error. Well, in my classroom, there's a ton of tolerance for error. That's the goal, is to make a mistake and learn from it. Anyway, this is not new. Having students interact with the material is not new. We don't want to remember what happened to him. So one of the challenges of online teaching was to maintain the things that I love about teaching in the classroom, in the online class. And the elementary language class is a great place to make community because the people in the elementary language class are learning how to talk to each other. And in first year French, they're learning how to say hello, how are you, how old are you, do you have siblings, are you married, yes, I'd like another beer, a cup of coffee, all the things that people do in casual conversation. And so they get to learn about each other, they get to talk to each other, they get to engage in real communication in the target language in the classroom. So we want to do that online to create that great sense of community that you get in the classroom. The other thing I really love about teaching an elementary language class is that you get to see results. They come in, they don't know anything. At the end of the semester, they're having little conversations about having another cup of coffee. Are you married? Do you have children? I mean, it's really rewarding. So you get to see them progress from 0 to hopefully, the place where you want them to be. So how to do this in the online environment? Okay, so I think the answer to that question has two parts. One, to think about creating activities as much as you think about creating content. And two, to use a grading strategy that motivates students to do the activities that you've spent half of your time creating. So the grading strategy includes a lot of no and low stakes activities. You want to provide students, so many frequent no and low stakes activities in the online course mirror the interaction and activities that take place in the regular class, where students raise their hands, go to the board, work in groups, etc. But in the online class, it's not just enough to tell them to do it. You have to put in place some kind of accountability so that they're motivated to do the activities. So one of the things, so a lot of the low and no stakes activities include things like in Moodle it's called a choice, it's a short poll. Use it as a pre-reading activity to get them involved in the material. Of course, the discussion forums where students respond to a prompt in the target language and answer each other. Voice board postings. They get 100% if they do it, 0 if they don't. Same with the forums, 100% if they do it, 0 if they don't. I want them to want to do the activity. I want them to feel good about doing the activity. I don't want anyone to be penalized for making a mistake because, we're all going to make them. They do a lot of quizzes in, my semester class. There are over 30 quizzes. These are really short, low stakes. They can be taken over and over, usually 3 times. And there's a half an hour between the first and second attempt so that if they haven't looked at the material, maybe they'll go look at it in that half an hour when they're prohibited from doing a second attempt on the quiz. And then the questionnaire I use to get feedback from students about the course and the material. Oh, and also the choice, not only do I use it to introduce them to the material itself, but also to find out what they think about the material. Because I respect their opinions, and I want them to know that I respect their opinions. So I want to ask them about it, and I really do care about their answers. They do higher stakes activities too. They do these listening comprehension exercises. If you ever took a French class, you've done a dictée. These are great online because they can play it over and over, and they're made so that they're self-correcting. So it gives me a break. They do compositions, formal compositions where they write several paragraphs using the vocabulary and grammar that they've learned so far. They only do 3 of those because I do give a lot of comments. I use a rubric. It takes a lot of time to correct those, but they only do 3 of those, 1 for each chapter. They have oral assessments where they use the voice board again. And here I have a rubric to grade their oral production, and I give them private feedback because this is graded. It's different than the weekly voice boards where everybody gets to hear everybody else. And then finally, of course, there are chapter tests that include compositions, listening comprehension, and all the other good things that are in tests. So here's a typical week. They start out at the beginning of the week. Of course, there's a checklist of activities. I used to think it was enough just to have a list of things for them to do, in order. But they really like the checklist. They print it out. They check them off. It's actually just a copy of what I have here. Then, the objectives for the week. And then each of the different sections with a heading are the 3 things they're going to learn that week. This week is transportation vocabulary, certain adverbs talking about the future, and then some more expressions talking about the future and what you're going to do, what you have an intention of doing. And so in each category, there are both low stakes activities and content items. So you see there's a little choice, there's content, there's an oral exercise where they listen, they can repeat if they want, and then there's a quiz. So for everything they learn in the course, there is an activity where I can see whether or not they're learning it. There's the checklist. I do add something to the checklist, and that is the thing they're supposed to do with each item. Read it or listen and learn, read, listen, watch, and learn. And that's because the content has not just text, it has pictures, it has videos, it has audio. So there are multiple ways of accessing the content for each item. Okay, out of those 12 items, 5 of them are things they're supposed to do. So here's the little choice activity. It's a pre-reading activity for the transportation vocabulary lesson. And here I'm asking them how they go downtown. Do they take the subway? Do they take the bus? Do they ride their bike? Do they take a car? Do they take a taxi? Do they go on foot? Some of these are cognates, so they can figure them out. Some of them are vocabulary words that they've just seen. And the students answer. And we find out who takes the subway. 6 people. 1 person takes the bus. 1 person rides his or her bike. A lot of people drive. No one takes a cab. A couple of people walk. And so it's kind of a way for them to just start interacting with what they're going to be learning and making it relevant to their own lives, which is what we want to have them do. Here's an example of the voice board. It's the Wimba voice board, which is now a Blackboard Collaborate item. And it's really easy for them to use. They click on the record button. They click on the play button. They get 100% if they do it. Here's a little quiz that is used mostly as a learning tool, not as a quiz. They can take it 3 times. One of the big problems people have in foreign languages is the numbers. It's hard. But there's a big difference between 3, 13, and 30 if you're buying something or you're trying to get, 3 kilos of tomatoes. If you say 30 instead, you're kind of in big trouble and you're going to be making a lot of spaghetti. So this, they can listen to the number as many times as they want, and they can take they can do the activity 3 times, and they learn the difference between 3, 13, and 30, 4, 14, and 40, 5, 15, and 50. Hopefully by the end they know the difference. I want to show you one little poetry unit. This is the poem that everybody does in first year French. Did anybody take first year French and do this poem? No? Okay. So first of all, they have pre-reading questions to think about as they read it. They have 3 ways to experience the poem. They post to a forum, and then they do the little choice activity. So one of the ways to experience the poem is just to listen to it and read along. There's a picture of the author. Then there's a video that somebody put on YouTube. It's very serious, very somber. It's got music by Eric Satie in the background, very somber. And then there's the alternative version for people who appreciate that. So they listen to it 3 times, and then they do a serious response to the forum. This is the Q&A type of forum, meaning that when they post a response to my post, then they can't read the other students' responses until after they've posted. So I get a lot of really, really good original responses. And I've been teaching this poem for 20 years or more, and every single semester with the Q&A forum, I get things I've never ever thought about. And they're all really valid. So I love the Q&A forum. I think it's really, really neat. And then finally, they get to pick the version that they liked best. And this is a choice where they all get to see the answers that everyone gave. So they get to see who is like-minded, who likes to watch the lighter version or the heavier version. So we get to see who liked what. A lot of people liked the audio alone. A lot of people liked the serious version. And there were just a few of us, I posted here too, that liked SpongeBob. Okay, so the grading strategy, I want to be sure to create a safe place for everyone to make and learn from their mistakes. But I also want to be able to assess their progress during the semester and motivate students to do the activities. So here's my grading strategy. I make sure that each part of the course has some worth, but it's not, but there are lots of different ways to succeed. So the participation, those are the forums, both oral and written. They get 100% for doing them, 0 if they don't. So everybody can get A on that 20%. The exercises are graded. The compositions are graded. Only 3 compositions worth 20%. The quizzes, over 30 of them are all self-graded, only 20% for all those little short quizzes, and then 20% for the chapter tests. So if you're a student who doesn't do well on tests, you can still succeed. With all those activities, here are the strategies to save the teacher. A lot of self-correcting things. The quizzes, about half of the tests are self-correcting, and the dictée and other listening comprehension exercises are self-correcting. And then there are a few manually corrected things. About half of the tests, which include compositions, short written exercises, and the oral assessments. And all of the forums and voice boards are credit, no credit, and the choices don't get any grade at all, but people still do them. I think it's kind of amazing. The choice and questionnaire are really good for getting student feedback because we want to know what they think. During the first few weeks, I asked them about the workload. I'm really happy when the right amount gets the most votes, as it did this time. I kind of wonder when what work gets votes, as it did here. And then I asked them to tell me about the materials. So what do they think was most useful? They tell me what they thought was most useful. I asked them what was least useful. Look at that, the textbook got the most votes for that. I don't know what that means. The questionnaire, I like to ask them about the course at the end of the semester. I asked them about 3 things: the course materials, how useful were they, and how fun were they to use. Sometimes they answer the same. The same things that were fun were also useful, but more often the things that were more useful were less fun. I asked them about their experience with me, with the instructor, and then about the complete course experience. So anyway, here are the activities and goals. I want to get a sense of community in the class, a sense of working towards a common goal. So for that, the good tools are the discussion forums, choices, both pre and post reading activities, but also to get student feedback on the course itself. The voice board or voice thread if you use that, and of course the email tool that lives in your course management tool. I want everybody to participate, students with students, teachers with students, students with teacher. And so for that, once again, the discussion boards, the choices, the voice board, and email. I want people to feel like the online class is a safe environment to try and try again and learn from their mistakes. So I want them to have lots of opportunities for practice. And so the grading strategies allow me to set that up with lots of low and no stakes activities that don't take them very long and don't take me very long to grade. And then I want to be able to monitor student progress throughout the semester, not wait till the end for the big stakes test. And so once again, all those low and no stakes activities allow them to do that, a variety of types of activities, self-grading and open-ended activities. And once again, it's the forums, the choices, and the voice boards that let me do that, and the quizzes, of course. So that's all I have to say. That's it. The end of the day.
Questions?
Now you know why I don't do any lecturing in my classes.
The question I have, or it's actually not a question, it's a comment. I was able to, review your course portfolio and thought it was fantastic. But one of the things, knowing that language and being involved with the distance learning program at my local college for so long, knowing language was one of the courses that most of our faculty in languages were concerned about bringing online. The comment is I felt it was great the way some of your no stakes and low stakes activities, especially the choice.
Wasn't that fun? I love the choice.
I thought the choice, but the reason why I thought the choice was great is because you ask them a question that's going to apply to their personal life. Like, for example, how do you go to school? And you give them options, but the options aren't just the text. Mm-hmm. You have an image of what that option is. So if they're taking a taxi, there's a picture of a taxi with the words in that language.
Right, in some of the choices I do have that, yeah.
Yeah, and so when you see that as a student, I think what we've learned is being able to see the image and have the word. I think there's research that shows that works more effectively for somebody because they're no longer trying to process the word and translate it in their mind. Instead, they have an image attached to it. Right. And I think like products like Rosetta Stone, they do the same exact thing for that very purpose. And for it to be in such a small no stakes, low stakes kind of situation and being able to learn that, a student could then pull the options back and see the results and say, oh wow, 6 people like me take my car.
Right.
4 people take the bus in my class, and they're really putting it together. It's not just words to them or nouns or it's actions in their life, and these 4 people are doing it.
Right.
These 4 people like Bob L'Éponge.
Right.
I didn't know.
Well, about the choice, the taxi's in there not so much for them to, say, yes, I take the taxi to school, but it's a cognate. Everybody knows taxi, right? And then they learn that that's what it is in French. And then the other thing that's really cool about the choice is that nobody makes a mistake in the choice. Everybody, everybody gets it right.
I do a similar thing with your, either you did it and get 100, or you didn't do it and you get a 0, which means that my courses end up with an awful lot of A's and an awful lot of F's. And that's okay with me. One of the questions I have for you is, so I also try to keep this sense of fun and people wanting to do this, and varied weights on different kinds of activities. And yet I'm still stuck myself with using the word final exam or final project, and how it doesn't matter if I say the final exam is worth 10% of your grade. It's a stress factor for students as soon as they hear that. And do you have any suggestions?
Well, my final exam, don't tell anybody at my school, but my final exam is really a chapter test. And what I figure is that the final exam is going to use all the grammar and vocabulary that they've had from the beginning, right? And so their composition in the chapter 3 test or the chapter 6 test is going to use everything from previous chapters. So for me, that's good enough for a final exam. So it's just a chapter test, just like the other ones.
And so do you call it that then, or do you call it a final exam?
Well, I call it the final exam because we're required to have one.
That's right.
But then I tell them in my weekly message, I say, we're having the final exam, but guess what? The final exam is on chapter 3. And of course, since you're using everything you've learned so far in the semester in chapter 3, you're responsible for everything in the semester, but it won't be any different than the test you have for chapter 1 and chapter 2.
I find that I have students who then think the opposite also, who think, well, I haven't done any of the homework all year, but I'll just do the final exam and that'll somehow get me a good grade in this class.
Well, I don't have any students like that, because if they're not doing anything, they get messaged in Moodle and then they get dropped because they can't possibly, this discipline sort of lends itself to not being able to cram at the end. You just can't.
Yeah.
Everything builds on the thing you learned yesterday, so you just can't do it. And having all the little activities, I hope, spaces out the work so that they, even if they don't understand it, they do that. But.
Cool.
At the end of the day,